You know, every single culture in human history has had to answer one huge, inescapable question. And today, we're diving into how Christians have wrestled with it for 2,000 years, looking at a choice that's not just about what's practical, but about what we truly believe. Burial versus cremation.
So what do you do with the dead? It's a heavy question, right? Ancient Rome, well, they answered it with fire. Egypt answered with intricate preservation. But the first Christians, they answered it in this really strange countercultural way. They waited. They didn't see the body as just some shell to be tossed aside. No, to them, it was something precious, something waiting for a promise to be fulfilled.
And let's just get this out of the way right now, because this is the absolute heart of the matter. This whole debate has never, ever been about what God is capable of doing. I mean, of course, God can resurrect a body from ashes, or from the bottom of the ocean, or from nothing at all. The real question, the one Christians have been asking for centuries, is much closer to home. What story do our actions tell? What we confess to the world with this final act?
To really unpack that story, we've got to start with why burial has been the historic Christian confession. See, this wasn't just some random tradition they picked up. It was something deeply, deeply woven into their scriptures and their whole way of thinking. Because when you actually read through the Bible, this clear pattern just jumps out at you. Burial isn't just a footnote. It's presented again and again as a powerful act of faithfulness. It's part of the very fabric of the story of God and His people.
And just think about these stories for a second. They're incredible. Abraham isn't just getting rid of a body. He's buying the very first piece of the Promised Land as an act of faith. Joseph's bones being carried out of Egypt? That's a bold declaration. We don't belong here. Our hope is somewhere else. I mean, God Himself buries Moses. If that doesn't show honor for the body, what does? And it all leads up to the burial of Jesus, which is absolutely non-negotiable for the gospel story. And then the Apostle Paul comes along and gives us this stunning image, this metaphor that became the picture of Christian burial. He says the body isn't destroyed, it's planted. It's like a seed. You sow it in the ground, and you do it with this confident hope that there's going to be a harvest, the resurrection.
The early church heard that and just ran with it. They developed this beautiful, powerful idea of the tomb as the womb of resurrection. Think about how that completely flips the script on what a grave is. It's no longer a pit of decay and finality. Suddenly, it's a place of quiet, of hopeful waiting for a brand new life. So it's like the Bible develops its own kind of symbolic language, right? On one hand, you've got burial, and it's consistently tied to concepts like rest, hope, inheriting the promises of God. But on the other hand, the burning of bodies is almost always linked with judgment, with being consumed, with a curse. And understanding that stark contrast is absolutely key to getting why the early Christians were so passionate about this.
Okay, but that's only half the conversation. To really get the full picture, we need to turn the coin over and look at the very solid reasons why many, many faithful Christians today believe cremation is a perfectly fine, permissible option.
And honestly, this side of the argument often starts with a giant of Christian thought, Augustine. He made this really critical point. He said, look, while he preferred burial for its symbolism, our methods don't put a leash on God. The resurrection depends entirely on God's infinite power, not on how well we preserve a body. And building on that foundation, the case for cremation really rests on a few solid points. First, and this is a big one, there's no verse in the Bible that says, "Thou shalt not cremate." Second, God's power is absolute. He's always raised martyrs who were burned at the stake or believers who were lost at sea. Third, there's actually a story in the Bible about King Saul where a body is burned before burial and it's not condemned. All of which leads to this crucial point. It's all about the motive. The problem isn't the fire, the problem is if the choice is made as a way of saying, I deny the resurrection.
Okay, so now we can bring these two powerful arguments together, because the debate isn't about what God can do. It's about what we communicate. What story does our choice tell a watching world? You have to picture the world these early Christians lived in. In the Greco-Roman Empire, cremation was super common. It was often tied to this idea that the body was basically a worthless prison for the soul. So when Christians chose to bury their dead with honor and care, wow, that was a radical public statement. They were shouting to the world that the body matters to God and that their hope in a physical resurrection was real. And this really shows you why the symbolism of fire is so loaded. Whether you're talking about judgment in the Bible, pagan philosophy about escaping the body, or even later when authorities would burn reformers to try and erase their memory, fire has consistently carried this symbolic weight of finality, of erasure. It's a symbol with a very long and heavy history.
And what's so fascinating here is that this is not a new debate. You can see that major Christian thinkers for centuries, from Augustine all the way to modern guys like R.C. Sproul, have held both of these ideas at the same time. They almost all say, yes, burial is better, it's richer, it tells a better story. But they also affirm that cremation is permissible, because our ultimate hope is in God's power, not in our own actions.
So where does all this history and theology leave us? Right here, right now. Let's try to bring it all home to the choices we face today.
In our modern culture, a culture that often prizes efficiency over meaning and sometimes treats the body like it's disposable, these two choices tell very different public stories. Burial tells a story of continuity, of waiting, of the body mattering. It confesses that something is being sown in hope. Cremation, on the other hand, no matter what our personal intention is, it speaks a symbolic language our culture understands as finality, disposal, of being consumed by fire.
So here it is, the bottom line. While choosing cremation is permissible, and it absolutely does not and cannot stop God from resurrecting a body, the overwhelming weight of the biblical story, 2,000 years of tradition, and the power of its symbolism, all of it points to burial as the fullest and clearest Christian confession about the goodness of our bodies and our solid hope in a new life.
Ultimately, the Christian faith insists that our bodies are not just temporary vessels. They are part of the story God is telling, from the first creation to the new creation. And so the question this whole thing leaves us with isn't a theological puzzle, it's a deeply personal one. Even in death, your body tells a story. Which one will yours tell?